Hello BookTube, hello book friends, welcome back to my channel and another video, this time a tag video about rereading or not rereading. So this is the to reread or not to reread tag. It was created by Bob at Robert G Reader of Books, which is actually a channel I subscribe to, but I think I must have missed this because I don't remember seeing it, because I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat, and I've gone back and watched Bob's video, and I honestly have to say I think it's the first time I watched it. So apologies to Bob for not watching his original tag, but this is what he had to say about rereading books. A perennial topic among booktubers and readers in general is whether it's worthwhile to reread a book, or is it just a waste of time? It's a question I don't think has been ever received its own proper formal post, i.e. one with prompts. If it's already been done, no offence intended, I'm not trying to take the wind from anyone's sails. Here's my take. I don't think it has been done as a tag. I agree with Bob. There are lots of videos out there that mention rereading books. I'm pretty sure that I've mentioned rereading books many times, kind of indirectly, when I've been talking about sort of books in my reading week updates and so on. But Bob has come up with 7 prompts and a tag other people prompt, and let's talk about it. I'm gonna divert a little bit from the formal prompts, just because I've kind of got in my head what I want to say, but I will go through the prompts. So prompt number 1: do you reread fiction? Why or why not? Yes and no, and I will come back to that in a minute. Do you reread non-fiction? Why or why not? And again, yes and no. I don't have a hard and fast rule about particularly rereading books, but I'll explain as I go. So if you reread fiction, this is problem number 3. If you reread fiction, what kind of fiction are you most likely to choose? Bestsellers, classic literature, genre fiction, fantasy, science fiction, mysteries, romance, westerns, adventure stories. What is your reasons for choice you've made? Now, this is where I'm going to ramble a little bit. There are many fiction books that I have read multiple times, and most of them, I think, because they have kind of special memories associated with them, or they're books that I've come to treasure because I love reading them. I enjoyed the story or the characters or whatever it happened to be. There are others that I have no interest in reading whatsoever. So, for example, I've recently finished I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes. I spoke about it in my last reading week update. I have no intention of rereading this book. It was okay. I enjoyed it. Not going to reread it. It came from the book exchange box in the village. It's going back there in due course. So no intention of rereading that. However, a couple of books. This is one, Oversea Undersown by Susan Cooper, which is a kind of, I suppose it's middle grade children's book. And another one, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Both of these I have read multiple times. I've probably read The Hobbit sort of more times than I've read The Lord of the Rings. I have read The Lord of the Rings many times, but probably The Hobbit more so. Both of these books have memories associated with them for me. So The Hobbit the first time I read The Hobbit, it was actually it wasn't I didn't read it; it was read to us at school. And then the following summer, I borrowed the school library copy of The Hobbit for the summer holidays, and read it each morning. I read a chapter in bed before I got up. My mum, let me stay in bed to read a chapter before I got up and came down and had my breakfast. And I've still got that memory, and I still think of that when I reread The Hobbit. I love the story. I love the characters, the adventure, Smaug, Bilbo, all the dwarves. It's just it for me. It is a magical book, but it is a special book because it has those memories associated with it. Similarly, Oversea Under Stone, in a similar way, from the same school. But this always reminds me of the summer holidays. This is the book that if I want to, remember sunny summers of 40 plus years ago, I read this book. You know, by different, different memories. So, Alistair MacLean was probably the first adult, in inverted commas, author that I read as a child, and I started collecting his books. I've got several first editions. They have special meaning to me for those reasons. And I'm just about to start rereading all of these in order, just as a project. Similarly, Stephen King. I want to reread again The Shining and Doctor Sleep, which is the follow up. They have special meaning to me. Doctor Sleep, in particular, was a book that I was reading when my dog was very ill. And we used to sit on the sofa together and read. And that was the book that I was reading at the time. So, I think I reread a lot of books, particularly, they have some kind of special meaning, and that's kind of why I read them. I'm also rereading a lot of the books that I was assigned at school, because I think when you're assigned a book, you're not forced to read it, but it has that kind of connotation that this is the book that the school and the teachers are telling you to read. And I've reread a few now, so I'm a big fan of the war poets anyway, and that was because that was a school assigned part of our English literature course. So I very much at the time took that on board and have kept it ever since. So the First World War poets, and that has morphed into a whole other project as well. But there were other books that I have only ever read once. So some of Shakespeare's works, Lord of the Flies by William Golding, Kestrel for a Knave by Barry Hines, Billy Liar by Keith Waterhouse, and Inspector Calls by J.B. Priestley. All of those were books that I was, assigned to read at school, and I have mixed memories of. Now, I have good memories of Macbeth, Kestrel for a Knave, and Lord of the Flies, and all three of those I've reread recently and have thoroughly enjoyed. Now, the two that I haven't got to yet, and probably because I didn't enjoy them quite so much, were An Inspector Calls and Billy Liar. Now, that I, in my head now, rationally think that is possibly because of the teacher I had, because I had different teachers for those books. So the ones that I really enjoyed, I had one teacher for, the ones that I'm not kind of quite so keen to reread, I had a different teacher for. And I do think now, 40 plus years later, that I might find the ones I didn't enjoy a different experience. So put it that. So watch this space, I guess. So that was a very long-winded answer to that prompt. If you reread non-fiction, what kind of non-fiction are you most likely to choose? Histories, biographies, autobiographies, memoirs, philosophy, science, theology, travelogues? What is your reason or reasons for the choices you've made? Okay. Yes. Again, there are many that I reread. I think less so with non-fiction about the where and when and what. The happy memories don't quite have the same association with non-fiction. I've picked a few examples. One that contradicts exactly what I've just said is this book, Common Ground by Rob Cohen, which gets mentioned a lot on this channel. This is a natural history memoir, and I think it's a brilliant book. Don't get me wrong, and I do reread it regularly, and it's got tags in it, and lots of marginalia and things. And this was the book I was reading at the time I was trying to decide whether to leave my job. So I can vividly remember traveling to work each day on the train, rereading this, and at the same time trying to kind of weigh up the pros and cons of should I stay or should I go from my job. But I don't necessarily think that is a factor in my rereading it. I just love the book. The stories, the can't say that word, anthropomorphization, and that one of some of the wildlife in the book is incredibly well written. And like I say, we recommend that to anybody. So that's one. Another book I used to reread a lot, probably every year, and haven't read recently, I have to say. But I think maybe this is prompting me to reread it. Was John Katz's Running to the Mountain, which is kind of a story about midlife crisis and deciding direction of life. And I think that's time for a reread. That took me into reading a lot of Thomas Merton's published works, and in particular his own diaries. And I reread these all the time. I tend to dip in and out of these rather than reread the whole book or the whole volume of his diaries. And I think there are, what are there, 7 volumes, 7 or 8 volumes, can't remember. So reread those a lot. And then also I have a lot of interest in military history, but in particular conflict journalism, artists, poets, as I've mentioned before. So I reread quite a lot of those sorts of memoirs. So this is one that I reread quite regularly, Dennis Barnum, Malta Spitfire Pilot. It was originally published under a different title, and off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was, and I don't know if it says in the front. Yes, One Man's Window. And Dennis Barnum was a school teacher, actually a school teacher, or latterly was a school teacher, but fought defending Malta with the RAF during the Second World War. He was also quite a talented artist, and this is the book is I can't find a single illustration. I just said the book is illustrated, and I can't find any of the drawings in it now. But yeah, so things like that. And again, I would tend to dip in and out more than read the whole book through. So I'll look for. Still can't find any pictures. How embarrassing. But yeah, those sorts of. No, maybe I've picked up a volume that hasn't got any in, but I thought it did. Anyway. So yeah, those sorts of things. There are. Okay, I've got the list. Let's find. That doesn't make any sense. 122 and 123. Excuse me. So no. That is really odd. Because I was completely sure this had illustrations in. And yet, there we go. So they're not actually where they say they are in the book. They're all. So there we go. So yeah, he just used to do, sort of sketches of, his friends and colleagues, and pictures of the battles and things that were going on. So that's completely lost my train of thought anyway. But yeah, so a lot of the non-fiction stuff I tend to dip in and out of, and not particularly follow from cover to cover. If you've read a book, point number 5, sorry. If you've read a book which has been translated from another language, would you reread the same book in a newer or different translation? Yes, I would. I read, as viewers of the channel will know, The Count of Monte Cristo earlier this year, and thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not sure which translation I've got off the top of my head. But I definitely want to reread that book. And I think probably when I do, I will get a different translation, just for the, to see how much it differs. But yeah, I would definitely do that. I don't necessarily think I would buy a newer version. I would probably just look and see what was, if there was a different version. Point number 6, how many times would you reread the same book? I don't think I have a particular specific answer for that. I think, it very much depends on what the book is. So the Hobbit, I don't know. I've read that probably 30 plus times, Similarly, Alistair MacLean's, I've probably read most of them more than once. Some, many times, others, once or twice. I think it varies very much. What's the most recent book you've reread? Oh, I'm going to have to get because I know I've reread books this year. So let's have a quick. Actually, funnily enough, A Kestrel for a Knave by Barry Hines, which I read in March. That was the last book that I reread. And then before that, well, that's interesting. That's the yeah. So the Sherlock Holmes stories, and my camera has just gone dark, which is a nuisance. I hope that's not scratched the recording. So yeah, during February, with Holmes is Where the Heart Is, so The Hound of the Baskervilles and others were rereads. So again, another author that I reread a lot is Conan Doyle. Tag some friends, prompt number 8. I will have a look and see, because I know Pat has tagged lots of people, so I will have a look and see if there are any of my booktube friends who she hasn't tagged, and then pick some and put them in the description below. But thanks to Bob for coming up with the tag and the prompts. Thanks to Pat for tagging me. Thank you to you guys if you've made it this far. Apologies for the slightly rambly responses to some of the prompts, and I will speak to you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.